walk down and flush them out.
Welcome to the Hearts of Men podcast, a journey into the depths of men's hearts where courage meets vulnerability and wisdom embraces integrity. In a world that often measures a man by his outer achievements, this podcast dares to explore what truly defines a man of character. We unpack the challenges and triumphs that shape men's lives, bringing to light stories of resilience, compassion, and unshakable faith. We believe that the heart of a man is a treasure trove of untold stories, powerful lessons, and profound wisdom. Through authentic dialogues and insightful discussions, we aim to unlock these treasures, one story at a time. So, whether you're seeking guidance, inspiration, or simply a moment of reflection, you're in the right place. Get ready to be challenged, inspired, and transformed. And now, to guide you through this journey of discovery, please welcome your host, a visionary leader and a true catalyst for change, Dwayne Dwyer, but we affectionately know him as the Mindset Coach.
Good evening and welcome everybody to this week's episode of the Hearts of Men podcast. We're your host for this week's episode. My name is Dwayne Dwyer. I go by the Mindset Coach, and I am joined by my brothers. Up top with me is the Uncle Junior, also known as the Consistency Coach. His mother knows him as Mr. Garfield Martin, but that's our funky uncle. Below us, you have the son of Timothy. The available man, his what he goes by, like his government is Brother Tawami Gaddy. And beside him and up under me is Mr. Roland Walker, Mr. Poor Man's Dr. Phil, Mr. Shift Hampton. Gentlemen, how are you doing on this beautiful Friday evening?
I'm doing extremely well. I am enjoying my summer. I am off. I am doing all the things with my time. Even took a nap today. Fell asleep this morning. Well, this early afternoon, playing with the dog. Crazy. Laying on the floor, fell asleep playing with the dog.
Wait a minute. You fell asleep playing with the dog?
Playing with the dog.
And your dog must be about as old as me.
My dog almost 8, but he only like 4 pounds. So we just throwing stuff, come back. Next thing you know, I was asleep, man. And I think probably maybe 5 or 10 minutes. Man, next thing you know, I got up and got in that bed. So
I got you.
Nap. I'm good. I'm ready, energized, and ready to go.
See, I didn't take a nap on purpose. I was just sitting there and dozed off. So yeah, I feel you. But yeah, I'm enjoying this my time off because this week coming up, I'm gonna be full granddaddy mode. So yeah, I'm enjoying it while it lasts.
All right.
Yeah, he been off for about 10 years now. But 11, maybe 10. Yeah. I was close.
Going hate, boy. I tell you. Hey, hate on them right now. Coming through my screen.
He's talking about enjoying my time off. You've been enjoying life. That's what
you ain't got no job, Tommy.
That's what I was going to start with, but I was like, nope.
Joe said he put in his time in his 20s, 30s, and 40s, so in his 50s and 60s and 70s, 80s and 90s and 100s. Chill.
20s and 30s,
He's still on it.
Yeah, he ain't gonna let it go.
Y'all throwing logs on the fire like I'm not supposed to stand the flame.
He already started backstage before the show. He already started.
Yeah, he did.
No one today. I know I'm next because I'm the only one who ain't been in the crosshairs yet, so I'm waiting on mine.
Nah, I'm good. I'm gonna calm down. I'm done, but I'm doing good. Enjoying my days off.
Yeah, that was the part I was waiting to get to right there. Out of all that, you just want you to tell us how you're doing. Um, I'm always good, man. I have zero complaints. As always, I enjoy meeting with you guys on Friday evenings. Enjoy sharing in conversations, not just the shoe show backstage before the conversation, but the dialogue that we have leading up to the show. And of course, like you guys, we always enjoy connecting with the most livest chat on social media. And again, we greatly appreciate you guys. You guys are a functional part of every show that we have. So with that being said, we want to make sure that we empower you right now to share your thoughts, ask questions, all of that great stuff. And please do not forget to hit the like button and share it on your platforms, because again, that's how we get more attention to the great and wonderful conversations that we have. As you guys know, on the Empowering Perspective YouTube channel, we like acknowledging people by name because we appreciate you being here, because you can be any place else on this beautiful Friday evening, but you decided to hang out with four bearded dudes, and we don't take that lightly. So that being said, Crystal Everett, good to see you and welcome. Nick D, good to see you and welcome. His Divine Appointment, as always, good to see you, welcome. Charlotte Jordan, as always, good to see you and most definitely welcome. Samurai J, good to see you and welcome to this evening's conversation. Miss Verlene McCoy, aka Queen V, good to see you, welcome. Miss Lisa Keys, good to see you, also known as the Voice of Reason. Listen, they're going live tomorrow morning, so y'all make sure that y'all present for them as well. Good to see you and welcome. I'm looking forward to that conversation. And to anybody else who is out there who is just hanging out, looking, get in the chat. Let us know that you're here. Whether you're on YouTube, whether you're on Facebook, whether you're on Instagram, get out there and just say hi, so that we can acknowledge you and appreciate you while we have the opportunity to do so. I've already announced that the Hearts of Women go live tomorrow morning at 10:30 a.m. Honeybee, good to see you and welcome. Are there any other admin things that we need to address before we kind of take off? Miss Taken Back, good to see you and welcome. Any other admin notes that we need to address before taking off? Nope, all hearts and minds clear. That's what I'm talking about. Well, that being said, Nick D, let's get the show on the road. Let's keep it real. How many of y'all feel like you're out here running in circles, working overtime, grinding till your knees shake, but still stuck in the same place your pops was at your age? I see you. We all see you. I am you, or was you. And I know that burnout, that I'll sleep when I'm dead, hustle that's been preached to us like gospel. But here's the kicker. What if chasing that hustle harder dreams actually holding you back? Seriously, what if survival mode is just tradition in disguise? Take James, a truck driver by day, tech genius by night. The brother has been scribbling app ideas on napkins for years, but never hit send. Why? Because his pops told him steady work was safe. Fast forward, James is 45 years old, tired as hell, watching some college kid steal his idea and make millions. Sound familiar? Y'all know why, right? The game's rigged. They'll praise your grind while betting you'll stay too tired to lift your head and see the traps. But here's the flip side. Malik, a young brother from the south side of Chicago, said nah to the solo grind. Dug up an old African strategy called Susu. Got his boys together, a barber, a teacher, a mechanic, and they pooled their cash together and flipped a worn-out corner store into a community hub. Now they're buying up the block. No loans, no suits, just trust. That's the shift we're talking about tonight. This whole conversation is about seeing the code. Why do we still act like needing help is a weakness? Why is Derek, the smartest dude in the room, still shrinking in meetings while Karen from HR keeps stealing his shine? We'll crack it all open tonight. The 5 lies keeping us small and the exact moves to break free. This ain't help stuff. This is war, and we're done losing. So hit that subscribe button, grab your uncle, your cousin, and your sister, and also your barber. It's time to thrive, not just survive. So when it comes down, you can bring me back main stage, please. When it comes down to these conversations, you guys know how we tend to do it, and we like to begin things in a particular manner. Now, before we get started, I want to make sure that I give this disclaimer, because as you guys know, this is the Empowering Perspective community, which means that every individual on this panel we believe that we're subject matter experts of our own perspective. It's not that we don't know some things. It's just that this is our perspective about the things that we know, and we're sharing them. So that being said, we invite your perspective. We invite your questions. We even invite them. We even invite them if they're contradictory to what we believe. And as you know, I would tear a whole show up just for a question. So we're going to kind of dive into the first question, because I always like to start questions with kind of like baselining the idea just to get this diesel engine off and running. So the first question is, in your opinion, gentlemen, whether you experienced it or you learned it later, what are some of the mindsets that we as men need to overcome?
Ooh, me. I got a good one. All right, so I'm gonna start the show off with something in your area, right? So as the mindset coach, I think one of the biggest areas that one of the mindsets that men need to overcome is the closed mindset. I think a lot of times we grow up and we get information from coach, and no matter what happens, I grew up around my uncle coach, and coach said that A, B, and C. So I believe that no matter what, A, B, and C is the way to go. Not taking nothing away from Uncle Coach. However, Uncle Coach lived and grew up and was in his 40s in the 80s. And the way things were then were kind of different than how things are right now. Not saying that some of those lessons learned and information that was passed on to me was not good or is not applicable in my life. However, I think sometimes one of the things that stifle men or hold them back from achieving more is that closed mindset. And some of it comes out in the form of ego, and sometimes it comes out in the form of not being open to valuable, constructive criticism and information that may come along as we maneuver through this thing called life. So for me, my first thing is going to be men need to overcome the closed mindset.
Now, before I let you go, I need
Mhm.
you to articulate what a closed mindset is, just in case somebody who's listening don't know what that means.
So, my opinion or my definition of what a closed mindset is that you are fixed on a certain opinion about something. Not talking about truth, but you just believe that everybody on that side of the fence is this way. And no matter what information, even facts, data, proof someone may give to you, you are stuck on that information and you're not open to listen to another opinion or a different perspective about something.
I love it. Let's keep the party going, gentlemen. What you got?
I was going. Oh, go ahead, Dad.
Oh no, you good. You start.
Okay, I was gonna roll with the whole strong silent type. Real men don't cry. I think that whole mentality teaches us that we should suppress instead of express. We should hold things in to where don't let nobody else know what's going on. And so now you fail to look for therapy. You fail to express yourself in ways because if somebody knows, they can use it against me. If they can hold those things against me. And when we do things like that, because we are the strong silent type, or we just don't like to let our left hand know what our right hand doing, we're using excuses. And what we're doing is we cross-pollinate. We're using good tactics with bad tactic and putting them together and not making any sense just so that we won't feel the need to express ourselves because we never could feel validated by our voices. So we held it in and we use it as a shield instead of using our silence to listen. We use it as a shield to ward off things that could possibly hurt us, could possibly damage us. Or it's one of those things where we just were taught about, that because, silence is a strength. Silence in certain areas may be a strength, knowing when to shut your mouth, but silence when you should speak is definitely not a plus.
When I was younger, I used to always hear men, and this was men that were doing well financially and men who weren't. Right, the idea was you don't get to enjoy what you work for, right? You just work and die. That's your life as a man. And I think a lot of the stoicness fell into that. A lot of the closed mindset fell into that because it also breeded a lot of the mentality as I work for this, so my way or the highway kind of mindset. But you never really took time into to actually enjoy the fruits of their labor for themselves. Well, it didn't matter how much money they had. Even when I moved and I was exposed to men that looked like me that had more money, it was they were old. They were still doing something so that the women can do this, the women and kids can do this, and they really wouldn't enjoy that. They didn't go places with the family. A lot of times, sometimes they did, but a lot of times it was just, I've retired from this job, now I'm gonna jump over to this job in my 60s because I need to make more money for everyone else to enjoy. And I think a lot of men, I think we got to get out of that mindset. I think the younger gen, that's really, I would say, for like around my age and older, because a lot of younger men, at least from what I could see, right, from my vantage point, I feel like they do a better job at it. The younger generation do a better job at enjoying what they have. But we were taught, if you ain't out there sweating and dying, you ain't a real man.
I definitely appreciate all those, and I was writing them down that you guys talked about. Roland, I'm sorry, Garfield, you mentioned the closed mindset. Roland, you mentioned the strong silent type. Real men don't cry. And Gaddy, you focus on work, and mine is going to be very similar to that one, the last one, because I believe, for whatever reason, one of the worst things that we have adopted as men is that our value is defined in our net worth. And so what we do is we work, like Gaddy says, to increase that net worth, so that increases our value. Well, we believe that also increases our ability to obtain, whether we're talking about stuff or people or whatever. Yeah, and so again, we have to get out of that mindset to where your value is found in your net worth. It is not. Your value is created in you by the creator. And once you realize what that value looks like, now you can actually walk in that, and embrace that. And I love what Samurai said, when it comes out. And Garfield, I see your question. Samurai addressed, when it comes to the closed mindset, you also have to think about the inability to break out or try something new. And I love your question: what would create an inability to break out or try something new, right? And I think a lot of that, and I think Honeybee gave us the answer to it. I think a lot of that is fear, stubbornness, pride, willful ignorance, and some people are just anti-ideas if they don't come up with it themselves. And I agree. I've experienced that as well. And Samurai's response also is like getting comfortable in your position, thinking you're doing fine. I think that complacency is a huge part that goes along with it. So thank you guys for your response. And as you see, we're really starting to dive into it. So I want to kind of unveil the first mindset that we have to pay attention to, and kind of like unpack it and really understand how it's really affecting us. And that is the generational hustle trap, when hard work becomes a liability. Now, the problem here is that African American men are 35% more likely to equate hustle with self-worth, often prioritizing survival jobs over purpose-driven paths. And this kind of goes back to what I was talking about previously. So consider James a 42-year-old father of three, 42-year-old father of three. He's working 60 hours a week as a trucker, and mirroring his father's labor behaviors. While his tech startup idea just gathered dust, like I mentioned previously, he retired his father's hustle blueprint at 45, only to watch peers he mentored build six-figure apps. So I guess my first question, gentlemen, is why might a Black man's adherence to the belief that hard work equals success lead to undercapitalized businesses, despite studies showing 70% of Black-owned ventures fail from lack of leverage, not effort?
I think And this for me rings true, I think, throughout the entirety of just the context of this conversation. Is a lot of the things that we were taught, a lot of the mindsets we were taught, especially when you say as Black men, were things that were probably necessities for the previous generations, understanding circumstances, right, and conditions. But when conditions change, some of these mindsets is not that, oh, we got to get rid of the mindset, or is overcoming the circumstances that created the mindset, and then the mindset shifts with that. So when I look at this concept, we talk about a generation that, and we talk about it a lot. We talk about a generation. If you go back to my grandfather, was born in the early 1900s, right? My father was born in the 1940s. They understand what disenfranchisement really meant, right? When you didn't really have much, when you weren't really allowed to do much, when communities did thrive, they were destroyed. So these men worked for pennies on a dollar. So they had to work. When you talk about working twice as hard, because they had two jobs. they had their job, they had their second job, and they had their side hustle, just so that they can give their family a certain lifestyle, and feed their kids and stuff like that. So I think we looked at that growing up, and in our minds, we had to have that same mindset of work hard, hustle. But we weren't taught in that generation how to actually build. We weren't taught businesses. We weren't taught credit. We weren't taught finances. We were just taught work. And we were taught work and spend, because that's really, at least I could speak for myself, that's really all we had to do. We only, enough came in just to spend.
But I think that with that mindset, we were taught that, but I think we also had if I know how to do this much and I know how to maintain, now my paradigm is already set. So antiquated views, antiquated ideas are current for me, because my mentality is staying still. It's not moving forward. So anything that comes towards me, I already got I know it all complex. Like, no, I know how to make money. I know how to get it done. I know how to take care of my family. Yeah, you know how to work, you know how to hustle, but you don't know how to move forward. And when you don't know how to move forward, what you become is stagnant in everything, and you just going along to get along. And that's where many of us are when it comes to ideas, when it comes to learning something new. We think, okay, now I don't need to learn that. I'm good where I am, because you're afraid to step out on faith, on your abilities, on whatever it is, because you don't want to look like a failure to those that you're providing for.
I like all of that. And I'm taking all of that and I want to add to it. So why might a Black man's adherence to the belief that hard work equals success lead to undercapitalized businesses? Because I think a lot of people see it as an easier path, good, bad, or indifferent. All four of us up here have a level of financial success because of the hard work. Now, it's not just because of the hard work. That's just one piece of all that we had to do in order to get to the finish line, in order to get to the retirement. There was a lot of other things and sacrifices that went into it as well. But I will say that when you look at people who have seen hard work, we saw that more, and we may see that more than the businesses. I don't have men in my family who are business owners. We got one or two that may have some small businesses, a couple of people that may be self-employed, but that stuff was not thrown in my face. I didn't see that all of the time. So I didn't grow up with an entrepreneur mindset. So one of the reasons why Black men adhere to this belief is because that's what we see. That's where we saw the people who were successful. When we saw the people who were successful in our minds, some of us, It was the guy who worked at the plant for 30 years or for 20 years. It was the guy who had the union job and had the benefits and stuff like that, who drove the Cadillac and had the nice car and stuff like that. You know, it was the guy at church, the elder who had, you know, the nice vehicle. He wore nice suits. He had his hair done. He smelled nice, different things like that. So for me, I think part of the reason why we adhered to it is because that's what we saw. We saw more.
Yeah, Uncle, your sound went out, bro. Nope, still nothing. Nope. Well, let me as he get his sound straight. Like I'm liking everything that I'm hearing. I heard everything from fear. I've heard we did not have the proper mental model, is what I tend to call what he just said. We didn't have the proper mental model, and that's where my hat was at when it comes down to those questions. Like I think, yep, I got
Okay.
you now. You want to finish?
Yeah, I think that, you know, some of it was just we just didn't have it. We didn't see those people. Not like, at least for me. I know some of y'all, and I've heard other people. I know Vic from, you know, from another show. He talked about how he had uncles and grandfathers and people in his family who had businesses and different things like that. I didn't see that. So I think some of it is just what we're seeing. And even what Coach mentioned, regardless of the reason why the businesses failed, they are failing at a high number. So when I look at, do I want to go down? Would I want to work at the plant for 30 years? Do I want to go in the military for 20 years? Do I want to go and get a licensure in HVAC or plumbing? Do I want to do that? Or do I want to take my chance that my business is going to fail and that my family may not be able to eat? So I think some of it may come down to people's risk and what they're willing to risk in life as well. So kind of all of that is, I think, the reasons why, at least in my opinion, one reason why black men adherence to this belief, kind of the question. There we go.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah, again, I agree with everything that everybody's saying. And to me, that goes back to the right mental model. We see a thing, and sure, we, like you mentioned, the brother driving the Cadillac, smelling good, dressing good, whatever the case may be, but that is also governed by my perspective of success. And a lot of time that creates that perspective of success for me. And so now for me to feel as though I'm successful, I need a Cadillac, I need to dress good, I need to smell good, all these other things. And plus, you inject what other people tell you as well. So now to hear someone say, well, you drive a Cadillac, so you must be, you know, you always dressing good, so you must be, you always looking at, so you must be. So now that incorporates that mindset when it comes down to success. But I want to go incorporating all this. This is not different or separate from what you guys said. I also think that because of the notion of hard work equals success, when we go into the business sector and decide that we want to be a business owner, we take the idea of working into being a business owner, and we can't separate it. So I tend to call that the difference between an entrepreneur mindset versus a consumer mindset. And so a lot of times what we end up doing is using our own finances to fund that business. And then in the midst of funding that business, now we got to buy the things that we need to run that business. So now I'm using my JOB to fund my business and live at the same time. And that is a recipe for failure. And it's frustrating because a lot of times how we view hard work equals success. And we go into the business thinking that I must work hard. And therefore, if I work hard, therefore I can be successful. But I offer that 70% of Black businesses fail due to undercapitalization, not effort. So if we redirect energy from labor to leverage, which we incorporate mentorship and automation and asset sharing, then we may discover something different. And I also seen some comments up here as well Instead of seeking outside investors, partnerships, or loans, some may try bootstrap indefinitely, leading to under-resourced and overstretched operations. That, to me, is one of the primary reasons why we fail when it comes to businesses. Let me see, somebody else.
But this goes back to what I was saying, like, because is this not what our parents were being told, right? And not by each other, but it was the whole pull yourself up by your own bootstrap mindset, right? And so,
Yeah.
but I think along the lines with what she said, it's not even just outside capital. We don't collaborate together no more. That's where the difference between us and the Black Wall Streets or the hundreds of other communities that were destroyed, that was thriving, was they collaborated together. It's more about, I got to come up and prove to everybody else that I'm like, we as a people feel like we have to be superior to one another.
See, I think we do collaborate. I think we collaborate on the wrong things a lot of times, because if I say, hey, we gonna get a couple bottles, or we gonna get a VIP section, or we gonna get this, that, and the other, we collabing all day. I think when it comes to those negative things, because those things put the limelight on us, it highlights us personally. But when it comes to positivity, I don't think we look at the things that we did learn, because what Unc was saying earlier, I think we saw a lot of entrepreneurs. We saw a lot of entrepreneurs that were drug dealers. We saw a lot of entrepreneurs that were hookers, that were pimps, that were players. They used the hustle to attain something, and they had to network market to make sure their products went forth, and so on and so on. But they didn't have the guidance and the education to transfer that into something positive. Those things are negative and damaging, and it puts the limelight and money in my pocket now, but it never taught me to sit down and look at the bigger picture. It teaches you to look at your little small circle.
I just want to mention, this is how you know when you're the youngest on the show, because when I used that same analogy about a month ago, they called me Nino Brown. I'm just saying, I love my brothers though.
And this is how you know that we're missing the entire point, because everything that you just said, I just said, like literally everything. So collaborate with me. Let's do that. Let's collaborate right here. But even to Roland's point, right? Yeah, we've seen it the wrong way, but it still had the same mentality. Like whatever they made from that business, that's what they shopped from. So again, the mindset still exists. Right? The mindset, regardless of whether it is for a positive venture or whether it's for a negative venture, the same mindset exists in that. And so I think, again, that's one of the issues that can be problematic. Samurai asks, would that be considered the crabs in a barrel mindset then? I'm going to throw that out there for you guys to jump on real quick before we get into the next question.
I think so.
What's the that in this?
What we were just talking about.
I don't know if it'll be crabs in a barrel, because I think crabs in a barrel, I don't want to see you succeed. So my focus is all on me.
But that's the same thing. Like if we collab only on the things that don't matter, that don't prosper us, when it comes to actually making something, we always try to make it out. Like I hate that term. And y'all hear me say it all the time. Oh, I made it out. Made it out of what? Because that's everybody else is still there. So we made it out from amongst each other. And now we get to say, hey, I'm better than it. And I'm not saying that anybody up here does that, but we get to now say, look, I'm doing better than the rest of y'all. Figure it out. And I think that, to me, that mindset is crabs in a barrel.
So I don't think that it is a crabs in a barrel mindset. I believe it is an unproductive mindset, and I think, and not even, I don't want to, hold up, pause. I don't want to say it's unproductive, because there are some times where you can say, hey man, let's go get a bottle, let's go get some stogies, and we can go outside for 3 hours and we can smoke. You know what I'm saying? I don't smoke cigars, but you can go out there and smoke cigars and drink your bourbon. You know what I'm saying? And then you can have a really good fellowship time with your brothers and stuff like that. So I think that what it is, when we're talking about the crabs and barrel mentality, we're talking about people trying to hold people back. I think when we're talking about just people hanging out, having a good time, I think we're just not focused on productivity. So I just think that Not that it's unproductive, but I don't think that when we get together in those situations that we're focused on trying to get together and trying to be better, trying to innovate, trying to get ahead. So I just think we just hanging out.
Well, I think what we're talking about, I think what Coach is saying is that we aren't using a surplus. We're using the same money came in, the same money going out. Mm-hmm. So we're not moving anywhere. We're standing still, running on the treadmill. So I think that's where, like, if we went and got whatever and we did whatever, it's not coming from my rent money. It's not coming from the money that just came in. It's coming from what I have in excess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I will also offer that the mindset or the idea of the crab in a barrel, you know, we were kind of given what that really means. Like, what would happen if the crabs in the barrel, they were actually trying to help each other out the barrels instead of pulling each other down? Do we know what it is that they're doing? No, but we automatically conclude that they're pulling each other down. So just throwing that out there, not necessarily an answer to that question. But again, I'm all about shifting mindsets, especially during this conversation. So the next topic we're going to jump to is called the visibility paradox. Now, stay low to avoid being a target. The problem here is that the visibility paradox is rooted in historical trauma, where many Black men avoid visibility despite competence. Only 4% of Fortune 500 executives are actually Black men. Now, that said, consider Derek a mid-level manager who downplayed achievements for years to fit in. A white-collar colleague with half his credentials was promoted by showcasing wins Derek mentored him to achieve. And so the question that I have for you gentlemen here is that, given that only 4% of Fortune 500 executives are Black men, how does the fear of becoming a target in corporate spaces silence potential leaders, even when Harvard data shows self-advocates advance twice as fast?
I think.
Hold on, before you go, can you kind of define target?
Wait. Ask the question again.
Can you define target? Like, in this situation, what is that target like? What does that target look like?
So if I just answer the question, a target is anything: person, place, thing, entity, whatever. But specifically, how does the fear of becoming a target go back to the notion of Tulsa, right? They had a fully thriving community, and because they had a fully thriving community that was self-sustained, they themselves became a target. Now you're making me answer the question.
Gotcha. I got you. All right, you did. I got you. Gotcha. All right, you can go ahead, Gaddy.
I thought you was gonna go after that. Okay. Kind of lost my frame of thought. My bad. When I'm looking at this question, let me get back to the question, right? Fear of becoming a target in corporate spaces silence potential leaders. I think what tends to happen is, as Black men, we don't like to be seen as complainers or loud or aggressors and stuff like that when we get in spaces that our faces are not familiar in. I'll say it that way. So a lot of times I think we suppress ourselves so that we don't come off a certain way. That, I think that's where the fear comes in. But I think what happens when you fly under the radar, right? You also are not known. So if I need someone to pull off a project that just came up, your name is not in the forefront because you staying under the radar. I'm thinking whether they're the troublemaker or this, that, and the third, I know their work. I know I can trust them with this product, or I can trust them with this project. And so that's what I go after. So I think you have to get out of the fear of being judged and understand. And I think we'll never get to a place if we think that we're not at a place to where we're seen as professionals, as people in a professional environment. We will never get there until we actually allow ourselves to thrive in that space, allow our personalities to shine, because we bring something to the table that can progress whatever we're doing, that can forward wherever we're at. So that's just my quick stab at it.
being invisible is safe. If I put myself out there, hey, ain't nobody gonna know. Ain't nobody gonna know what I'm thinking. I'm just gonna sit in the background. I ain't gonna stir up no mess. I'm just gonna be here so nobody notices me. But nobody notices me. So nobody knows my intellect. Nobody knows what I have to say about situations. Nobody knows that I have ideas. So it's a two-way street, because sometimes you go somewhere and you don't want to rock the boat. It's only a few of us. You know how it is. Whenever we go anywhere, I don't care who it is on this platform. When you go somewhere, you looking around to see some of you. Like, yeah, okay, it's 30 of us in here out of 2,000, because it's an innate thing that we do, and sometimes we're already thinking about what we think other people are thinking about us. So it puts a limit on us. Sometimes we limit ourselves. So I'm just gonna be quiet. I'm here. I ain't trying to rock the boat. Because if I ain't even drinking nothing. Because if I start drinking, I'm gonna start talking. If I start talking, I'm gonna become myself. And some of us are really afraid to be ourselves around other people. So
Yeah, and to add to that, I think also it forces or makes people self-censor. They don't say certain things. And let's be honest, man. Let's talk about the propaganda. Let's talk about the image. Let's talk about movies. Let's talk about some of the things and how we have seen Black men portrayed in certain spaces and what we think, our mindset behind what we think. We all, at some point, maybe not y'all, but me, I thought at some point, we seen what happened to that Sergeant Major. We seen what happened to we on. If you cut on your TV right now, we have so many examples, and people, their perspective is that once you get to a certain level, someone's going to come and knock you down. So if I know that if I get to the top, I'm going to get knocked down, why do I want to shoot for the top? I got a wife, I got kids, I got grandkids, I got a mortgage, I got 7 cars, and I got hobbies, you know what I'm saying? I got all of these things going on. So playing it safe over here is a lot better than potentially taking that risk going to that next level. And I think that's kind of what I was saying earlier. And I think I've heard that a lot in the military when we were in there too. I don't know how many percent of Black men actually reached the rank of sergeant major. I don't know. But I do know that I've heard a lot of people say that they did not want to get promoted to a certain level because of the responsibility and stuff that goes along with it. And then I know that's not part of the talking point, but I was just saying is that I don't know, but I'll back off of that and get back to this question. But I think that some of it is just the risk, how all of this stuff kind of operates and stuff like this. And I think sometimes it's just people will self-censor. People won't say certain things. People won't talk about certain things. People may not bring up things that may need to be brought up. Like, Roland and Gatto were kind of saying, kind of sometimes in a sense, kind of sitting back in a corner and just letting things happen around you without pushing towards that next level.
Yeah, I get all of that, and I think within the scope of everything that was said, there's a lot of accuracies there. I do believe that to some degree there is a fear because of a specific perceived target that's on you. Does that necessarily mean that the target is on you? Maybe, maybe not. Who's to say? Like Hopper, like Mr. said on The Color Purple. But again, it is a perceived target, and so therefore, and we seen a great example of that a few years ago. If you're interested in understanding what I'm saying, just shoot me a private message. I'd be more than glad to share it with you. But that person literally shrunk and just literally became a figurehead for the 4 years that they were there. And so that's a thing. I do know that based upon what Garfield is saying, and if you don't know who a sergeant major is the epitome of the enlisted corps in the Army, in the Marine Corps. I do know that there is a perceived fear because of all different types of eyes being on you once you achieve a certain level. Um, but I also wonder if a lot of that is self-perceived. I have to say that it is kind of like what Antoine Christopher said. Good to see you, brother. That's it's me being my own worst enemy in that aspect. But let me ask this question: like, what societal forces still push Black professionals to diminish their achievements? And how might reclaiming visibility shape workplace dynamics for future generations? Now, I got it. It sounds very similar to what you guys said, but is there a societal force that creates that mindset? And if I can find a way to like disengage myself from that, what does that do for the workplace dynamics, especially for future generations?
I think that you have forces that, or stigmas. We have stigmas placed on us by our families, our upbringing from, hey, when you get there, make sure you do this. And when you, or if you're in this position, you got to do that. So those things stick with us. And especially when you are under the Americanized Black culture, you learn a certain way because you see that other people come from certain islands or African cultures and they automatically have education as their system. And hey, I got to do it like this because, and it's hard, like for me, I'm just going to say it. I always got to be me. I'm not going to derail nothing, but it's hard for me not to address things when I see them. It's like I be wanting to just pull and pick and yada, 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 because that's the type of person I am. When somebody throw a rock, I turn around and say, man, let's throw some bricks. But I think when we're looking at the forces of Black professionals sometimes have the stigma of, I got to go in and shut my mouth. Because if I don't go in and shut my mouth, people are going to notice me. And then since they are in control, this is perceived in the mentality. Since they're in control and they control things, I could be out the door next week.
I'm like my brother, so I be having to curve my attention sometimes. But I'll say it like this: ourselves, right? Well, we can't forget. I say ourselves because what we don't do is we don't take the time to really appreciate and understand what each other is doing, right? We show up to each other to criticize. We show up to each other to make mockeries. We show up to each other to diminish what we're doing in an effort to make ourselves look and feel better or bigger. And I think so when we talk about what are some forces, it's ourselves. We can move past some things. We can grow past things. We can build better mindsets, but we show up to each other, and sometimes it's to hurt each other versus to build each other up. So we just got to be careful of that. Outside of anything else, I don't think it's any entities, but I think some things have just become American mindsets that we don't even realize we still have. Because we're perceived at only being good at certain things. We're really only good at singing or dancing or throwing and jumping, stuff like that. Like when we're seen, we're not seen as elite professionals. And you talk about of how might reclaiming visibility reshape workplace dynamic for future generations. We just gotta allow ourselves to shine unapologetically. Don't mean that we have to be angry about it. Don't mean that we have to be disrespectful about it. We just do our work like everyone else. Let it shine. Stand on what you do, what you bring to the table. That I think that's the way that the doors open up in the future when they become comfortable seeing you succeed in these roles and in these positions.
I like all of that. I am going to adjust this question, Coach, if I may, to the household, right? So when we're talking about professionals, we're going to talk about in the home. And then when we talk about, we talk professional, we can talk about us as men in the home, and then the workplace is the home. All right. So what societal forces still push Black professionals to diminish their achievements, and how might reclaiming visibility reshape workplace dynamics or home dynamics for future generations? So I have 3 sons. Over here, this is my office. I have my 3 degrees on my wall. And now I have heard people on many platforms say such things like, yeah, I got these degrees and they don't mean nothing. I don't hang them up and I don't want nobody to see them. That is fine. I understand that. However, sometimes it's not for you. Mine are on the wall so my sons can see what hard work, back to the other question, what consistency and diligence and putting in effort can achieve. Yes, along with hard work. So even in the home, we diminish our own achievements. Someone would say, hey, coach, we do it each other and we're all guilty of it. And we all have been done it. Hey, coach, or hey, Roland, blah, blah, blah. And you say, hey, man, I seen you're doing a good job. I seen something. Oh, man, it ain't nothing. It's just what I do. And I get it. And we diminish our achievements on social media, in our home, when our wife, when our husband, when my kids tell us we do something, we diminish our achievements. Not saying that we got to be egotistical and ask people to kiss our behind or anything like that when we do something. But what I'm saying is nothing wrong with hanging up your achievements that you've done. When you do something, some event, and you're proud of it, and it's an accomplishment or something that the next generation can learn from. Say, for instance, you're 60 years old and you went out there and you did a Spartan race or something like that, and you got a picture. Hang that picture up. So now when your grandkids come in your office, they can see the hard work and the effort that granddad did at 60 years old to go do a Spartan race. Now, that's just one example. So I think just reshaping the workplace and reshaping our attitude towards achievements can be very beneficial for our future generations. Not always hiding everything, not always saying, oh, it's no big deal. Sometimes just saying, okay, like I said, not being egotistical, but I think it's okay for us to be proud of some of the achievements and things like that we have done, because if not, all we're going to do is push this same mindset down to our kids and our future generations.
Yeah, I like all that. Agreed. I'm careful with going back to the hard work thing, right? Because that's the mindset that we're trying to move away from. At one point in time, it was all about having a seat at the table. But I was always an advocate that when you have a seat at the table, make sure that you add value to the room, not just take up a seat at the table. And I think it's clear, and I like Samurai J is just laying it down. Samurai J say, I've seen Black men in professional environments shrink to hide themselves because the majority is not standing out. The majority is not trying to solve issues within that environment. So a lot of times, again, we get the seat at the table just to say, oh, well, I achieved this. But is it about just you personally achieving, or are you using your now newly earned position to kind of empower those around you to achieve the highest version of themselves in that aspect as well? I think that's important because, again, don't just have a seat at the table, add value to the environment so that you can be a valued partner at the table, right? And I think in that aspect, now we're garnering the respect that we need, not just because of our skin color, things of that nature, because a lot of times that's how we view it. Let's just be completely transparent. I want to be recognized because of this, that, and the third. So add value, do something that requires people to look and say, you know what, when Garfield walks in, when Roland walks in, when Gaddy walk in, we know they're going to bring something that actually helps us move from where we are to where we want to be. And that's kind of like my response to this as well. Like, this is a very sad scenario, but I know for a fact that this happens in reality. You will spend, X amount of years in a company or whatever the case may be. And trust me, this also happens in the military. And I've been told that when you hit that 18-year mark, you got to be careful. You got to be consciously aware. You got to walk on eggshells, because if you don't, like, you'll mess around and get something will happen and you won't make it to that retirement benchmark. This is a very sad scenario. But I also go back to what I just said. Continue to add value, even though I'm close to retirement. Because believe it or not, that there are some people who are at that point of retirement and they're sucking up free air. They're not doing anything to add value anymore because they got their eyes on the finish line as opposed to having their eyes on the thing. I know that's not what she is talking about, but I'm just saying I'm looking at it from both perspectives. This is sad, believe it or not, right? This actually happens to people. But the other side, even though that we're at the point of retirement, let's continue to add value to the environment so that the value can continue to progress along.
They, my bad. I just because I think a lot of times we think we're safe in the military from this right here, but I don't know. I think all of us was in 2012, right? And I don't know if y'all remember when they came hard with not with the RCP, what they call it. It was like the RCP, but they came down at NCOs who on their second look it didn't progress. And a lot of guys was at the year 18, 19 and got told, I'll holler at you later because this was your third look and you didn't make it as staff sergeant and as sergeant first class. Because they fast tracked to sergeant first class or fast tracked to staff sergeant. And so because they got looked at three times, they got sent out the house. And we thought we were safe because we were in the military. I made stripes fast. I'm just waiting for points to come down. And it was just a small window of time. I think they only did it for about 2 years, but it hit a lot of people hard.
Yeah, absolutely. And I can't remember that program called QMP, QSP, whatever it looks like. But yeah, same, right? It happens. Very sad scenario, but
Dodge that bullet.
but it's real. We got to get to the point, right? The progressive shift is to get to the point to where we, to some degree, like weaponize visibility, like join boardrooms, participate in conversations, add value to those conversations, and normalize excellence as non-negotiable. I didn't say black excellence. I said normalize excellence. Okay. Let's transition to the next talking point because time does not want to give us any grace tonight. The myth of rugged individualism, how self-made keeps you changed. I have to do it all alone to prove I belong. The problem here is cultural glorification of solo success ignores collective strategies. Black men are 3 times less likely to inherit generational wealth, according to the Federal Reserve, limiting self-funded ventures. Malik and his 5 college friends, they pooled resources to launch a real estate fund. Their collaborative model, inspired by a West African ideal called Sioux Systems, outperformed solo investors by 200% in 3 years. So the question that I have for you, gentlemen, is when black men while black men are 3 times less likely to inherit wealth, how might communal models like shared investment circles bypass systemic barriers better than solo entrepreneurs?
I look at this as a team venture, and it's always easier to go through. I don't know the saying it's about if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go long, go with a team or with somebody else. And I think that's what this model provides. It provides, because I don't have all the ideas. I don't have all the resources. But if I can get a collective with the same mentality, see, and I think sometimes we look at one another and we're weary or we're leery about what they're thinking, what they may be trying to do. And it's a thing with us is we don't necessarily trust one another. And then I may trust somebody who doesn't look like me that they know right. So it's like you may have the same idea, but since Billy said it, I'm gonna go with Billy. And we have a platform or we have something that we can move. Like I love the SUSA funds and everything because it provides upfront finance. And I'm not going to a bank. I'm not borrowing and owing this money to some organization that cares nothing for me. But when we come together, I know someone over in Killeen, and they, along with all of the Filipino people over there, they all work together as a collective. They aren't family, they aren't related, but they work together simply because they understand that we come from here. So it's going to take us to push this thing forward. And that's what they do. If people aren't moving like they are trying to move, they move them out the way.
When black men are 3 times less likely to inherit wealth, how might communal models like shared investment circles bypass systemic barriers better than solo entrepreneurship? I like what Roland was talking about. I think that, if we were to take all 4 of us right now and we were all to take $400, $100 a piece, and we would invest that $400, and let's say, for instance, at the end of the year, we got 10% off of that money. Well, all of that money, even if we took that money and we took all our winnings, all of our earnings, and then divided it back up between the 4 of us, we would have made more money than if we each would have individually invested our $100 and still got our 10%. So when you work together, you can benefit from everybody putting in. You can grow more and you can do more faster. The hard part is the trust. You know what I mean? I think what's holding a lot of people back, and when we're talking about systemic barriers, I think one of those barriers is that word, that big T word that we talk about, trust. And a lot of times we don't necessarily trust everybody that we may want to get in business with. I know people right now, and I would love to get in business with. I think that mindset and everything, but they are on the struggle bus. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, if you are not managing your money well, then I am not willing to get into bed with business with you. So I think, I like the shared mindset, better than, the solo entrepreneurship. A lot of people say they self-made and made their own. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think there are some people who did. I think that, that solo entrepreneurship, that 1% of, I think it's 1% of person who actually make it on their own, I think is really slow. I mean, really low. That's like, and I don't think everybody can do that. I think especially nowadays, it takes so many different areas to grow a business or something like that, versus like if you were like, say if you were a boxer and you did all your own meal plans, you trained your own self and did things like this, and then you made it something like that, maybe solo. But I think in most cases, there's no such thing as a solo entrepreneurship. I think even right here, even though this is Coach's overall vision and mindset, you know what I mean? There's other people, there's someone behind the screens right now, behind the scenes pulling strings. There's 4 of us, there's other shows, there's a lot of other different things that's going into his vision, and other people doing parts of it too. You know what I'm saying? So that's my 2 cents on this question.
The more I sat and pondered on it, I always think about how I believe we got to the mindset, right? Versus just the mindset itself. But when I think back on it, like if I go based off of what I was taught in school, I would believe that Dr. King organized, put together the Memphis boycott himself, or went and organized the Selma March by himself, because you never heard about the names of those who worked with him, those who organized for him, those who helped him travel, those who stood beside him. You knew his wife's name, but that was it, And I'm just talking off of when we went to school, right? So a lot of times we have the image of our people have succeeded by themselves for the most part. Like everybody came out to march, but everybody wasn't involved in the plan, and everybody wasn't involved in the fight. Everybody wasn't speaking out. Everybody was just there to march, and Dr. King did the rest. And that's the way that we thought about it. Till you get older and you look into things, you realize there was a whole team there, that there was people that actually went and recruited him to be the face of the civil rights movement. And so we get to this mindset that in order for us to succeed, we have to do it alone. and we go off and we do and we do all these ventures, and we get told all the time, don't be afraid to fail multiple times over and over again, not realizing maybe the reason why you're failing over and over again is not because you're not trying enough times, but maybe because you're trying by yourself. And I promise you, I was looking at Ecclesiastes for myself, because I remember where it says, woe unto the one who goes alone, for when he falls, there's no one to pick him up. And I think that's the part. And then I also, what it says, how might the model like shared investment circles bypass systemic barriers better than solo entrepreneurship? Well, it bypassed because you're not going with your own capital. You're not going with your own buying power, with your own credit power. Not both of you get to bring what both of you bring to the table. That's always a better option. But the mindset we got to get out of, I think sometimes we, especially as Black men, all of us want to be the face. All of us want to be the voice. All of us want to be in charge. All of us want to be the majority holder, or even profiter of a thing. And in order for things to grow, I don't think we're desperate enough as a community anymore to say, well, I'll take the back seat so that we can make this thing grow, so that we can continue to do this work.
Yeah, I agree with pretty much everything. I definitely agree with the notion of trust, but there's a way that we can get around trust, and it's called contracts. We can create a contract that governs everybody participation into the thing, helping them to understand exactly what the outcome, like why did we create the fund, what is the expectation for the fund at maturity, and all these other great things. The interest don't go to the people, the interest stays in the fund. That's how the fund itself keeps growing. But again, the contract, everybody knows exactly what they're getting into. Everybody signed the contract. And then we also should periodically have contract review meetings as well, where we come back and remind everybody exactly what we signed up to do. I think when we have these models, that are actually put in place and talked about on a larger scale, then a person does not feel fearful of trying to do their venture alone, because the venture of the contract will be the thing that funds all types of outside, ventures as well. And that's kind of like how we look at it. Like, you got to start someplace, and consider at a 20-year-old man, like most of us never had entrepreneurship in the forefront of our mind. Most of us. Now, I did like multi-level marketing, but I found out that, well, that worked to a certain degree. But the certain degree that it worked for me was based upon my own faith and my own abilities, so forth and so on. And like I said before, being raised in the South, being raised in the South as a dark skinned man, until Wesley Snipes came along, we didn't have a lot of, we didn't have a lot of motivation in, what we could accomplish, just being honest. So now that changes the narrative. And so multi-level marketing was the first thing that I got into. But again, it was still a venture, but it was like a venture in the midst of you still doing work by yourself to a certain degree until you built a team. And so now you've seen what that looks like. And so I really do believe in this model, because at the end of the day, if we all get to the point of understanding it, sharing it, building it, incorporating it, things of that nature, not only does it exist for the now, it can also exist for those to come as well. And it just continues to grow and develop. And through that fund, like I gave the example earlier, sure, we may have bought a building and renovated this one building, but then later on it's 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 buildings. And next thing you know, we bought a community. And then the resale value of that, for the sake of the fund, there's no telling what the future can actually hold. But again, you're not investing all of your hard-earned money into the thing, expecting that to be a $1 million venture, because you now have a more realistic expectation. And I said all that just to get to the point of realizing that, again, we can't do it all by ourselves, man. We can't do it alone. It's one of those things to where, unless we get to the point of realizing that community is the way to go, then we'll miss the mark. And so the progressive shift here is build cooperative economies, investment circles, skill swaps, whatever that looks like, to bypass exclusionary systems. And that we're just going to jump to the next talking point. Nope, we're going to go to the next talking point, because I think that's important based upon time. The permission paradox, waiting for validations from systems designed to stall you. Now, in other words, I need a degree or certificate or approval to start a thing. And so the problem here is that systemic gatekeeping fuels imposter syndrome. Only 29% of Black men feel qualified enough to pursue executive roles versus 48% of white peers. Tyrone, and y'all know how much I love Tyrone and Tamika. So Tyrone in this one, Tyrone skipped college, bootstrapped a landscaping app, and scaled to $1 million in revenue. He later discovered his unqualified idea solved a gap Ivy League grads missed. So the question that I have, gentlemen, is why do 29% of Black men feel unqualified for executive roles, despite studies showing necessity-driven ventures grow 15% faster than rejecting traditional credentials?
I will start this one off with two things that I think, and I think one is fear, and I think the other one may be comparison. You know, I think that when we grow up as Black men, sometimes we look out at our left and our right, and we see some of our peers, some of our co-workers or whatever, and we see like, man, these people got this, and they've checked these boxes, and they're in their position, and we like, we're darn it, you know, dude got all of these positions. I mean, dude's got all these degrees and all these certificates, and this is the reason why he's in that position. So I think some of it is we assume that someone got in that position for a certain reason that we have thought about or came up with in our head that may or may not be true, you know, and then we assume now we start comparing ourselves to this person based off of the assumption of why we thought this person got in this position. Then the other part of that, like I said, the first part was that what did I say? I'm trying to having a brain fart. I'm trying to go back real quick in my head. I said it was two things. Y'all remember if y'all was paying attention to me. Comparison was the second one. The first one was I can't remember. Y'all gonna have to come back to me since I can't remember.
I look at this. I jump in while you thinking, but
What
get
was it?
you a pen, man. Get you a pen and write that stuff.
Man, I tried to go solo dolo. I tried to roll without it today. And then I caught up in my own thoughts. Yeah, hold on. What was comparison? Oh, that was fear. Boom, got it. So the other one was fear. So I got it. All right. So fear and comparison. So I think part of it is fear. I think sometimes, you know, and this goes back to mindset and different things like that, you know, and go back to that the 4%. We don't see a lot of people in these certain situations and stuff like that. So I think when we don't see people in these situations or in these roles, executive roles and stuff like that, there's a fear that maybe these things are kind of unachievable. You know what I mean? And then there's the risk factor again. Do I want to risk all of this, trying to do all of this stuff and get to these executive roles when there's a possibility that I may not be in this role, or I may get thrown out of this role, or I may get the finger, or I may become the target, you know, all of the things that we kind of talked about earlier in the show. So I think some of this is fear. And I can definitely speak on that from a personal situation. You know, I am a John Maxwell certified trainer, speaker, and coach. But when I first went through, I did not have the confidence and I felt unqualified to do certain things. Felt unqualified to sit down with another grown man and coach him, you know. But it took some time in order to get over some of that fear. I just think fear. I think fear is a big one. I think fear is one of the big reasons why 29% of men feel unqualified for executive roles, despite studies showing necessity-driven ventures grow 15% faster when rejecting traditional credentials.
And I jump in right after you, and I say there is some cultural gatekeeping, and we look at it as we don't have a proper representation. We say, okay, everybody up at the top look like such and such. So now the mentality is, I know it's already two of me up there, so they're not gonna pull me up. They ain't gonna have three of us up there. And then I'm worried about how I talk. I'm worried about how I walk. So the mentality says, man, I don't really fit in here. So I'm scared to stand out instead of being myself, showing what I bring to the table. I'm minimizing myself so that they don't even identify me. So they're like, oh, who is that? Oh, that's the black guy. No, I'm not the black guy. I'm rolling. Because when we see somebody, we say, oh, that's such and such. You identify them with whatever you see. And I think sometimes we look at ourselves and we say, okay, there's some gatekeeping going on here because this is a Fortune 500 whatever. Even in the church, when you're a part, like if you're a part of the Southern Baptist Convention and you go there, it's 89% Caucasian. And when you go, you can sit in the background and just be one of the number, or you can say, okay, I got a voice too. So you have to have enough gumph in you to identify your fears so that you can overcome them, as well as actually know what you're bringing to the table so that you can advance yourself, not so that you can come in and just be a part of something, because some people just want to go along and get along.
Man, I'm glad, Roland, you went there. Part of me is like, I hope people we know don't watch this segment because when you went there, it kind of made my point that I was going to bring up, which is like, I think a part of it is we don't empower each other. When we get there, those of us who do feel like we're good enough, and when we get there, we don't power each other to see themselves there. And the reason why I say that, because let's say we talk about the Southern Baptist Convention, and Roland decides I have a voice too, and I get voted into a position there, and now people think that I'm important in the church that I'm in, but the people who are important in that church that I'm in don't want me to think that I'm important because they don't want me to supersede their vision of hierarchy, and they don't want me to jump into their command chain that they've created. And so it's this feeling of being encouraged to step out and step back because you're not that important. And I think sometimes we try too hard to humble each other versus empower each other. And when I'm moving forward and I'm progressing, and when I'm actually doing something that helps me, I don't need you to humble me out of growth. Right? Maybe if my character got bad when I got there and you address that, but you don't need to humble me out of my growth. Instead, we need to figure out how, because you're in position, how can I empower you to continue to grow? How can I be right there behind you, pushing you, so that when you're there, those who pulled you up or helped push you forward, you have now created an opportunity, in showing your face there says, hey, they can do the same thing. They can move forward too. So I look at it in that aspect. We tend to keep each other out of these circles sometimes. Not all people, but I've seen it a lot, and so it causes a lot of us to feel underqualified because coach told me that I shouldn't pursue speaking because I don't have his certification. I heard on bring up, I'm John Maxwell certified. I'm not. And so coach comes and say, nah, I don't want you to take that speaking engagement because you're not certified like this. And I am. So, just give me their numbers and I'll speak. And I'm not saying coach has never said or done that. I'm not saying he ever would, but there's people out there that will do that. And so that it stifles our confidence in ourselves.
So before I get started, listen, I created a poll on YouTube. I really want everybody to take the poll because I really want to understand how our minds see that question. To this question, you guys kind of took me down the street and around the corner to get me back here. I was a little lost for a second with the whole Southern Baptist concept. But I will say this in relation to this. There's a thing in that question that I have to point out, because the word feel to me is huge. And if I do not address that, then this whole question to me can be taken out of context. Because a lot of times how I feel has absolutely nothing to do with what you did or what that person did or what the people. No, it's how I feel. And if a lot of times if I don't question that in which how I feel and understand the assumption that that feeling is rooted in, it may not necessarily yield to what reality is trying to tell me in that current point in time. So when I look at 29% of Black men feel unqualified for executive positions, my first thought is why? Why do I feel unqualified? Is it because I know that there is, systemic gatekeeping? But even though that there is systemic gatekeeping, should it still make me feel unqualified? Or does that give me enough evidence to where I have to elevate myself? But then there's another thing when it comes down to this question, because necessity driven ventures serve people, traditional credentials serve me. And so if I am living my life to serve me, then I am looking for the education, I'm looking for the titles, I'm looking for all of those things, because in my mind, going back to what we talked about previously, driving the Cadillac, dressing good and smelling good is my definition of success. But when I understand what the people need, now I create the thing for the people, and that's the thing that rejects traditional credentials and get us to the point to where not only are the people served, but now I get to move, progressively in the direction of what the people need, because they're purchasing the thing that they need, which means that I'm focusing on serving the people again, as opposed to serving myself. And I think, I don't care how old you are, I think you can look across the spectrum of your lifespan and see where there's a people need, then this thing showed up to serve the people. And then the people flocked to that thing because it provided the need that they had. And so this causes us to go back. Do I really need to have the, traditional credentials, or have I focused my time, energy, and efforts on serving people? Because again, going back to every aspect of the conversation that we talked about, when we look at, creating SUSU systems, that's about serving people. When we look at being in the room and adding value, that's about serving people. The narrative never changes. When I focus on myself, I'm looking at serving me. And now I feel unqualified because at the end of the day, I have an idea that there's systemic gatekeeping. And so the systemic gatekeeping not only is there, but I allow it to be there and prevent me from pursuing it because y'all just gonna keep me out. Why? Because of one thing or the other. So that's kind of like where I go when it comes down to this. And again, because of time, we got to keep pressing forward. But the progressive shift here has to be focused on like initiative over permission. The initiative is always focused on what the people need, not so much as the permission that I need to be in the room to add the value that is needed to be there. So that takes us to our next talking point, which is the trauma to triumph reframe, rewiring survival instincts into strategy. And our mindset here is that I'm wired to expect the worst because it keeps me safe. Now, I used to live by this, and and I was reminded of this earlier today. Like, hope for the best and expect the worst. That's kind of like how it is. So the problem here is that PTSD from systemic racism, stop and frisk, workplace microaggressions trains our brain to prioritize survival reflexes over visionary thinking. And so after a wrongful arrest, Marcus saw therapy as weakness. At 50, he embraced CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy, techniques to redirect hypervigilance into strategic foresight. Now CEOs pay him $500 an hour as a crisis consultant. So now the question that I have for everyone is, how could hypervigilance shaped by systemic racism evolve into strategic foresight, as seen in cases where Black consultants monetize crisis management skills?
I look at them brothers from the Central Park Five. A lot of them brothers are doing very well with themselves. Motivational speaking, like you said, I think one does crisis management, but with like young boys and youths and stuff like that work for the city. They and in part, some of them got something going on in their life that helps them, succeed in society. But a lot of it is in part shaped from the trauma of what they went through. And so when I look at this question, that's the first thing that comes to my mind is like these brothers found a way to take their tragedy and triumph over. Now, of course, thank God for DNA coming into place, because that gave them that step forward. But sometimes all you need is a step forward to show you that the doors can open for you, and give you that confidence. But it's just the concept of taking what you've been through and using it in your life. And so to me, that's the best example. I don't even have to say too much on that. We can just go look those brothers up. They've done a lot in their communities as of late due to the overturning of their conviction, right? And now they're making good money.
What if I don't have that experience?
You have inexperience.
Well, let me frame it to such a degree. What if I don't have the experience to it? Because you got to realize, like, they also had the Netflix TV series that kind of helped them out. That's kind of like how it got widely publicized. So what if I don't have that experience to where Netflix now elevates us to the point to everybody knows what we've been through?
I mean, I get that, right? But so if you watch I don't know if it's another part of the series, like when they speak, but a lot of them guys were already making movement before the Netflix series came out. But they were local. They were in their community making those movements. But the reason why I thought about them like that is because just them getting started on doing better and not sitting down saying woe was me. They were actually making movement towards their progress, and that door opened up along the way. Netflix showed up along the way. Some of them were already doing motivational speaking. Some of them were already speaking to the youth, and Netflix just widened their audience to me. But I think whatever your experience is, like for us, we got a lot of us dealt with a lot of stuff in the military. I know people who went to school for therapy and became therapists, and they deal with people with trauma, with PTSD, because they've gone through some things. They've seen their brothers and sisters in arms deal with it, and now their careers are built around helping veterans. I can't speak for every experience because I could, but we all have an experience that we can use to propel us to do a thing.
I think first you have to identify what you are hypervigilant about and where the root is, so that now once you identify it and you go forward to where it's no longer putting you in a prison, now you see that there's a need for others to see what was going on, what's being taken place in whatever area that you're focusing on, so that now you may not have the backing of Netflix or whomever, but you may have a small group. You may have family members. You may have a church group. You may have a men's group, whatever it is where you can get your voice across to let others know that, hey, this thing ain't right. And then it may start at that low level and it could catapult you to where you're on the big stage. But if it's solely about the monetary gain, I think sometimes you will, kind of sell your soul. But if it's your passion, because it's, hey, I don't want anybody else to feel like this. Now, when you go in, everybody that you communicate with, because you never know who the next person is that's going to say, hey, I know somebody. But I think that when you start at the lowest level, because it's your passion, it can build and grow to a major thing.
The big word I think for me in this is how. So how could hypervigilance shaped by systemic racism evolve into strategic foresight? How? I think like Roland said, first of all, you look at what is the thing that you're hyper vigilant about, right? And then how is that thing shaped by racism? And then I think what you do is you look at a plan or say, well, how can I use whatever this thing is to benefit me or benefit someone else? Like, I have some things that went on in my life, some things that I've went through that caused me to want to target a certain audience or to target a certain group of people to help and work on in my life. Is some of them based off systemic racism? Maybe, maybe not. Is some of them based off of how I grew up in my environment? Yeah, some of those things. But I think at the end of the day, what you have to do is you have to figure out all of those things and then come up with some sort of plan and then put that plan into place to whereas, like you said, this Black consultants monetize crisis management skills. Do something with the information and everything that you have. So that's my 2 cents. And for the sake of time, I'm gonna stop right there.
No, I appreciate that. And that's why I asked the question in the beginning, what if that's not my experience? It doesn't have to be my experience, especially if I know something is systemic, right? I can learn from the experiences of other people. And if I take the initiative, and that's the key, take the initiative to learn from someone else's experience, I don't have to go through what they've been through to learn the lessons that they learned in that moment. I can, like, I can literally think about what it would be like to be in. And I give a perfect example. During the George Floyd incidents, I actually had a very serious conversation with my son. One of the things I shared with him, like, look, do not be out there trying to be right. It's not about being right in that moment. We just need you to get home. Long as you get home, we can fix everything else. But what I cannot fix is when I need to go buy a black suit. I can't fix that, right? But you just make it to the house. So I'm only using that as an example, but I think we can still use all of these things so that we can learn through somebody else's experiences, teach the necessary lesson to the people that we know, love, and care about. But we don't have to stop there. We can teach those lessons to the people that we don't know, but we still care about them because of who we're called to be. So that's just my thoughts on that. We're going to skip the last question for the sake of time. Anything else that anybody else want to add before we get into our final thoughts? Nope. All hearts and minds clear. Love it. Listen, we greatly appreciate you guys. Love all the comments that you guys are putting in the chat. But as always, this takes us to our bittersweet moment, which is our final thoughts.
Another great episode. Tonight's topic was shifting from survival to thriving. That was the first part of that. And every single morning, here's my 2 cents, and here's what I want to leave you with. Every single morning, we have an opportunity to live or just be alive. We have the opportunity to survive or to thrive. When that alarm clock goes off in the morning, you have an opportunity to you just hit the reset button in a sense, and you have an opportunity to go out there and live your life to the fullest and to the best way that you know how. Your mindset is going to determine how your day goes. There are going to be something that's going to happen that day that's going to try to come against your happiness, and that's just or whatever else mood that you may be in at that moment. So I just say this: start trying to win your morning. So when you wake up in the morning, make a conscious decision to not just be in survival mode and not just but to try to thrive and try to be the best version of yourself that you can be every single day. And that's my final thought.
Whew, again, like my brother said, a real good show. I enjoy these type of conversations. Because we need to break down the mindsets and move forward, right? But what I've realized as I look up a lot of these communities that are very collaborative, right? Islamic, the Muslim, and I'm talking about y'all know the Elijah Muhammad Islam community as well, the Jewish communities, the white national Christian nationalist community. They all have in common is that they have a shared belief about who they are and about their God. And that's something I think that we struggle with in our community. Though this is the most fundamental concept of almost any culture and community, is who they are and who their God is. It's something that we struggle with, we lack. When we begin to search it out, we're always told it's not about race. It's not about race, but it's about identity. I think a lot of the issues we have, a lot of the fears we have, the way that we see ourselves and the way we see each other is based upon the fact that we don't really have an identity to tie to ourselves. We don't have a culture to tie to ourselves. It changes generationally. We don't have a standard that our people stand on. And in fact, we're identified as a color and not as a people. We categorize all dark people as black, but they all have something to hold on to. But we here, we hold on to the fact that we're just descendant of slaves with trauma and with problems that we have to overcome. But it's time for us to actually begin to overcome. And I think a part of that is with our identity. That's all I have for you.
I think that I would be wrong to act as if it's on everybody else. I think first and foremost, we have to establish a sense of discipline within ourselves so that we aren't afraid to be at the top because the shoe may drop or something may be found out or they're going to check my background and things of that nature. But I'd be disingenuous to act like people don't naturally pull people forward that roll with them, that look like them. That would be crazy. We did it on a basketball court. When we show up, okay, these five are with me. Or you see it in politics where one person, he used people to get him elected. But then when he got elected, he said, okay, I got seats for everybody, but none of those seats looked like us. So sometimes you got to not do things for the wrong reason and continue to discipline yourself and advance in knowledge and integrity so that you can know that when you are there, you're there for the right reasons. So you're not there just because, oh, this is a such and such hire or whatever. You're there because you're qualified. And when you're qualified and know what you're doing, you can speak loud and be proud about it.
I greatly appreciate this conversation. I love the perspective of everybody on the panel as well as everybody in the chats. And I love where Unc started off, and I'm actually there as well. Every day that I open my eyes is another opportunity to be the person that I'm called to be. This requires me to focus less on myself and focus more on his people. What am I doing to serve the people that I'm surrounding myself with? What am I doing to serve the people at work? What am I doing to serve the people in my circle? Like, that's a requirement if I claim to have this amazing relationship with the Most High that I believe that I have. When we go back and consider our existence, our lifestyle, a lot of the reminders of what the past looked like is purposeful. Like, it is them trying to get us back into survival as a goal. But survival is just the starting line. Our ancestors didn't endure chains, redlining, and stolen credit just for us to keep our heads down and make it. Their resilience wasn't an instruction to endure, it was a down payment on our liberated legacy. So the revolution that we must embrace is trading in hustle for harvest, turning scars into blueprints and letting healing fund our empires, because thriving isn't luxury, it's like our generational right. And if we don't embrace that, if we don't embrace that as a generational right, then what ends up happening is that we continue to recycle old mindsets through the lens of the images that they keep showing us, that they keep reminding us about. And it's funny, we're only reminded about a few select things, not the entirety of the thing. Like, I think it was Brother Gaddy who mentioned kind of like the team that was behind the scene that promoted this one person. But you only talk about that one person. But yet, because our mindset is in that way, we don't necessarily see the value of a collective community, like Sister Nadella said. The community is the thing to where if we can find a way to bond together, then we can find a way to thrive together. And for me, that is my final thought for tonight. So I greatly appreciate everybody's point. Like even with the poll that we did on YouTube, and just so that you guys know, the poll that we did on YouTube was all about the SUSU system. And out of everybody who took the poll, 75% believed that we could actually do it. 25% didn't. And I think those are real good odds, right? Because if I can use that as a sample, if 75% of us in our community believed in the SUSU system, then we can create a system that would be great for the advancement of the community. Then the 25% can actually participate, even if they didn't believe in it in the beginning. So I just kind of like wanted to say that. Again, you just seen at the bottom of the screen the shows that are coming up. As previously stated, every Friday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, you got the Hearts of Men. Every third Saturday, you have the Hearts of Women. Every fourth Saturday, you have Reframing the Image of Relationships. And every Tuesday night at 7 p.m., you have Coach's Corner. So that being said, if you're here, again, make sure that you're here tomorrow morning at 10:30 because that's going to be another great conversation. So on behalf of these distinguished bearded gentlemen on this panel, we greatly appreciate you. Again, we value you. Thank you guys for all of the information that you put in the chat, your opinions, your thoughts, your questions, all value added. So that being said, listen, let the best version of yourself be a blessing to somebody else, and we'll see you again next week.
I thought you was gonna get us kicked off, Gary.
Wait. Stand by. We are still live.